taking off your own braces, cheek retractors, teeth soreness, pokey wires. That's what we're gonna talk about today. Leave a comment below. Have you ever had a pokey wire? Did you take off your own braces? Hope not, but if you did, I wanna know. What kind of cheek retractors did you have? And did your braces make your teeth sore? Tell me about your stories. Leave a comment below. So recently from the channel, I've had a few different questions, and we're gonna go through some of those things that I've had some experiences recently that I'm like, maybe I should share about this on the channel with our viewers for those orthodontic patients out there. So first, thanks for the question about cheek retractors. We have done other videos, but not specifically just about cheek retractors. Well, actually in every office, there's some sort of cheek retractor. And the reason why orthodontists use this are to help with isolation. Remember, when we are bonding or gluing something to the teeth, like brackets, the teeth have to be dried, cleaned, prepared for the glue and the brackets so that when it's connected, it can harden and stick on your tooth. Well, all sorts of different kinds of cheek retractors, but there's some general kinds. This is a common one that we use in our office. You actually might have seen this. There's like new games out there that you put these in and say things. I don't know. Haven't tried it, but this is a cheek retractor. It's meant to retract your cheeks. And so it's always good when you go to the orthodontist if you get chapstick on your lips or Vaseline on your lips before you go for something like this, because it really pulls your cheeks apart. They're just like that. No, you have to be careful when that's in. The orthodontist is trying not to, but mostly it just rests on your lips and it pulls them out, right? Because it, boing, okay, it pulls them out, pulls your lips away from your teeth. The trick about this one, it doesn't have any sort of tongue guard. The tongue, if you're just resting in there, some people can't control their tongue. They're all over the place. They push and spit everywhere and it messes with everything. It makes it really tricky. But if you're good, you can use something like this. Actually, always things I can improve. Anyways, we use something like this. Just be careful. Sometimes, this part here, or particularly this part, it rests right up against your teeth, right there where the canine is, and it pushes against the bone. That can be a little uncomfortable. So just raise your left hand if you need to let them know, hey, that's not feeling very good. See here, ow. See, it still can get all over the place, so you just right down like this. And what we usually do is we usually take one of our small suctions and stick it in between there. You bite on it, and that kind of pulls all the spit out while we're working across your teeth for the brackets. Okay, so that's one. Here's another kind. It's similar. It's got this little bite, it's like a bite tongue guard, keeps your tongue back. Does the same thing. It pulls your lips and your teeth and tries to keep your tongue back. And your tongue, it still can get there. You see, that's there, right behind it. Sometimes we have to use those. I'm not as big of a fan. I like when it really pulls the cheeks away and that bite guard kind of gets in my way. But if I have the other one, I can use it. I can use my mirror. And anyways, there's no right or wrong, but the purpose of the cheek retractors are to keep things dry. Okay, here are some different kinds of cheek retractors. All right, we got one right here. Sometimes people use something like that. It's got this little bow that goes down. It's basically a bigger version of what we have. And then we saw those and then those. These are cheek retractors that we use for taking pictures. There's one I want to show. Oh, this one right here is like a tongue guard. So it's got this little plastic thing in here where your tongue fits inside, and then these little tubes that attach to your suction. So it's just a giant little setup that pulls all of the spit out and separates the lips from your teeth. So kind of a cool little tool. There's another version of that. See if there's any. Oh, that one is, wow, getting big. Anyways, those are the different kinds of cheek retractors. Very important. Thanks for the question. So tooth tenderness. How many of you have ever had sore teeth because of your braces or expanders? Anything that pushes on your teeth, or if your teeth are sore, it could mean that they're moving. Something is moving. So for example, somebody asked the other day, I've got a glued in retainer, but my tooth feels a little sore. Does that mean that maybe the retainer is broke and my tooth is moving away from the retainer? That's a possibility. So read this article. It was talking about acute dental pain, and per the study, the best approach for managing that kind of pain, ibuprofen. Not everybody can take ibuprofen, so don't just go take ibuprofen. Make sure if you're a child, you're talking with your parents about what medications you could take if you needed them, right? Don't just take medications bad for you if you don't take it the right way. Other option would include ibuprofen and acetaminophen. Sometimes we just give the general recommendation, hey, what you would take for a headache, you could consider using that to help manage the dental pain. It can help. Luckily, the soreness tends to peak and then goes away. So it's gonna be sore for a little bit, right? If somebody came in and said, I can't even bite into bread. Sometimes your teeth do get that sore, but it gets better, I promise, and it won't usually be as bad as the first time. So remember, ibuprofen may be a good initial approach, especially if your body can handle that. but don't ever do that unless you have your parents' permission. Okay, then I recently had somebody come to the office, just got the braces on, getting used to them, and they had a wire poke, all right? Wire pokes can be for lots of different reasons. One, as you eat, the wire can shift. Sometimes we add little wire stops, like glue something on, or a little crimp that you can put on the wire so it can't shift too far. But wires can shift and start poking, or the color that you use to hold the wire in place can come off, and then the wire gets out, or sometimes a bracket breaks, right? And then you got a flipping bracket, literally flipping in your mouth, all right? And how do you deal with that? So I've got two different techniques, just wanted to show you. So for example, especially when you're dealing with brackets that are in the very back, right? We call these teeth in the back the 12-year molars. If they're the second molar, 12-year molars, come around 12. We call them 7s in orthodontics. And we put these little brackets on. They can be a real pain in the rear because they're so close to your cheeks. And sometimes if you, like in this case, you have, it's usually a longer span of wire. The longer the wire is, the more flexible it is, which means that it can come out of the bracket when you're chewing in the food, puts pressure on the wires. So it's like, hey, you need to know how to deal with it. You don't want to be getting out of school and work for everything unless it's really causing pain. Don't just hide things, by the way. If something's wrong, please call your provider. But two tools that you could consider using. Now you're like, well, I don't have those. I'm going to show you on Amazon a link where you can buy something like this for like 11 bucks. Not crazy while you're going through, especially if you got braces a couple years. Even this might come in handy to save you if you can't get to the orthodontist right away, or even something like this. This may be not as effective, just something that can grab, all right? So let's say the bracket, right? Let's see if I can do it. You're eating, and do you see the flexion? I'm gonna use this right here, right? So you're eating, and then, oh, look, it's flexing, right? So the wire's flexing because you ate so much, oh, bam, wire out. What do you do? And now it's like, sometimes just because the wire's out, it may not be an absolute emergency. If it's just resting right by the bracket, or right on top of the bracket. Sometimes kids don't even know that it came out because, it's just resting right there. That may not be the end of the world, right? If you have I'm going to take this off. We had an example of this. Hopefully I don't pop off the bracket because these are really old. We don't usually take colors off these all the time. Okay, so let's say the color fell off. We're gonna deal with this one first. The wire's out, the wire's like resting out like this. You can see it's not in the bracket anymore right there, all right? So first thing mom or dad or you as a young individual can do is see if you can just get it, like sometimes you can use your finger and you can just like press it back into the bracket where it was resting. And then maybe, depending on how like flexed the wire is, it might just rest there and you could keep it there until you can get to your orthodontist. All right, second thing is if you've got your little plier, sometimes you can have somebody like you lean back on the couch, get some really good light, and these wires can be really flexible. Sometimes you can, you grab the wire, and this is, I'm like grabbing inside the mouth. You'd be grabbing from out here, right? I'm just trying to show you. You grab the wire, right? You can either try to, like I said, you don't have to necessarily put it back in, but if you can, that's great. Or you could just try to like rest it right by the bracket, right on top of the bracket. You gotta be careful on some of these things, but if it's really hurting you, right? If it's really hurting you, can try to reposition it to get it so you're not in pain, right? That's the thing. This is mostly if you're in pain. If it's not bothering you, you can just like rest there. Then, try to contact your provider and get in as soon as you can. If you really need to, you got these flexible wires. You can, bend your wire and you try to just sneak it back in there, right? And use your finger to push it back up. Sometimes it just gets bent down like this. It's not all the way out, and then you just kind of push it back in and it shoves it back all the way back through the bracket. Okay, let's say you're eating and that wire all the way back there. Or, worse, sometimes we miss it and there's like a wire that's still sticking out back there. You couldn't quite see it because the gum tissue was covering it, and you've all been there too. Your child didn't say anything. Be like, hey, is anything poking you? No, it all feels good. All right. So it's poking you. What you can do with your plier, you go to the other side, right? Go to the opposite side and grab part of the wire, and you try to pull it through the other way. You just grab it and you just kind of slowly, and then it comes back to this side and it's not so poking anymore. All right. So again, you could try with something like this, but it's probably not gonna be as good to grab onto. So I'm not telling you to be an orthodontist at home. I'm just saying if it's poking, you're at school or you're at work, it's like really hard to get to the orthodontist, like maybe you could do something to get yourself out of pain. Put the wire back into maybe move it around, see if you can get into a position that doesn't poke as much. It doesn't have to be completely tied in. Or if the wire has shifted, see if you can get, maybe you have a plier or the $11 one, you can grab it and you kind of move it over to the side to see if that helps. In the end, right, it's probably good to contact your provider to make sure, say, hey, this is what happened, this is what I did, send a picture in. Things like that can help you manage this situation. Sometimes it's hard to get in like right away. So here's an example of that, like on Amazon. It's a little plier like this, kind of like what I was just using, 11 bucks. I mean, not crazy. Like I said, please do not go home. Say, well, Dr. Ryan said that I could do all this stuff at home by myself. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're in pain and you need help with something, these are techniques to help you manage, right? The poking wire, the broken bracket, you try to flip the bracket, get it to rest in a good spot. Maybe consider this plier. Now, what you don't want to do, I saw this also on our channel, don't take off your own brackets. Don't go buy pliers to just, pop off your brackets, because do you know how to do it the right way? And, removing brackets generally is pretty safe, but if you're like cranking on them or pulling on too hard, in theory, the tooth could break. Generally speaking, you do it the right way and it's not going to break, but those are things that, that's why a professional does it. So let your provider take off your brackets. Don't take off your own. You might be able to get away without any major damage or even any minor damage, but just let the professionals do it. That's my opinion. That's my recommendation. So hopefully this video helps. Thanks for the questions about the cheek retractors. Hope you can manage your tooth tenderness better. If you got poking wires, maybe consider having a plier that you can use for those things in case of an emergency, like an absolute emergency, you can't get into the orthodontist. Finally, please don't buy pliers to remove your own brackets. Hey, if you know somebody who is considering removing their own brackets, share this video with them. My pleading, don't do it. Or if they need help on how to manage their braces, poking wires, things like that. If you are considering getting braces, come visit us here in McKinney, Texas. We'd love to talk to you about straightening teeth and beautifying bites. That's all I got, just a little PFO one, so you know where you're going. Packard out.